Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Online Summit on International Women's Day 2026. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, based here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today we are going to kick off our event with a lineup of speakers coming to us from Europe, from Africa. Let me tell you a little bit about what the HerStory Circle is all about. We are a global platform that's dedicated to amplifying the voices of women from all walks of life. We believe in the power of storytelling to inspire, to educate, to connect individuals, fostering a world where every woman's story is heard and valued. Our mission is to write women's stories into history and to create opportunities for women to share their experiences, to build communities and drive positive change. So the Her Story International Women's Day Online Summit is a virtual event that's celebrating the achievements of women and exploring the challenges that they face. Through inspiring speeches and panel discussions, the summit aims to empower women to rise through story, power, and possibility. So this year's theme is Voices That Shape the Future. Women rising through story, power, and possibility. And it focuses on the critical role women play in shaping the future of our world. We expect hundreds of attendees globally to watch us in various places, representing diverse backgrounds and industries. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce my first speaker. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Thank you so much. I am Dr. Arianna Masotti, clinical psychologist. I'm Italian and based in London. Okay, let's start. Imagine that you're sitting in the front row of a cinema. The lights go down and the screen turns on. The movie play is your life. You are the main character. So you watch yourself answering emails at 10:30 p.m., saying no worries, when actually there are worries, smiling in meetings, scrolling at night, promising yourself just one more episode, and waking up at midnight. You watch yourself in relationships, overgiving, overthinking, overcompensating. And here is the uncomfortable question. If you don't like the script, why don't you change it? Most people think it's discipline, mindset, another podcast. But neuroscience tells us something more. You cannot rewrite the script of your life while your nervous system thinks you're under threat. I'm Dr. Arianna Masotti, clinical psychologist, and today I'm here with you to share the amazing transformation that I witness with my clients. And I realized this a cold winter night in London. The night I couldn't unsee. I was in my therapy studio, holding a cup of tea like today, and waiting for a client, as usual. She worked in finance, JP Morgan. Brilliant, driven, but chronically exhausted. Shoulder tights, jaw clenched, attention scattered. The insight was there, but the change was very slow. That night, she arrived late, hair tied up, face flushed, and the gym bag on her shoulder. She walked into my therapy room wearing gym leggings. Well, not exactly what Freud had in mind. She sat down and said, I don't know what's happening, but today I can actually think. She had just come from the gym. And what happened next changed completely my career. Her posture was open. Same therapist, same woman, same room. But her attention span was increased. She was more positive about herself and more open to talk. Different brain states. And I couldn't unsee it. So I call it the dopaminergic window. After cardio, after aerobic exercise, something extraordinary happens in your brain. Dopamine increases. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter linked to reward and motivation. Endorphins rise, improving mood and pain tolerance. Serotonin stabilizes your emotional regulation. And BDNF, yeah, I'm not swearing, is the brain-derived neurotrophic factor, increases, supporting the neuroplasticity in your brain. In other words, your brain starts flexing. Yes, your brain becomes more capable of forming new neural pathways. At the same time, cortisol decreases, and the prefrontal cortex, responsible for problem solving and decision making, becomes more efficient. The amygdala then less reactive. In simple terms, the brain becomes flexible, and flexibility is the foundation of transformation. So I became curious and I said, was this just one client or was it there a pattern? I start observing systematically. Over months, 10 years, I tracked sessions. The clients who came after work were drained, burned out. They didn't want to talk after a long day of meetings. But the clients coming after the gym, they were different. More open, more focused, more positive. That was the prime time for transformation. And so I spent night studying the similarities, reviewing notes, analyzing the emotional access, tracking the decision clarity, and monitoring the behavioral follow-through. The pattern was consistent. When clients arrived psychologically activated, their insight translated into actions. When they arrived dysregulated, insight stayed just intellectual. Then is when I developed my own method. In that neuroplastic window, I structured sessions to push for active behavioral change. We didn't just reflect, we decided, we connected the dots together. So we rehearsed difficult conversation. We set immediate boundaries. We identified the action to implement together. They said I was crazy. So when I first presented this idea, colleagues were skeptical. You cannot do therapy after the gym. That's not serious. One even joke, so what's next? EMDR after squats? Actually, not a bad idea, but innovation always sounds strange before it becomes obvious. Think about Uber, that once sounded unsafe. Think about Airbnb, that sounded so strange. The problem wasn't the science, the problem was the ritual. In this case, we are used to separate body and mind, but biology never did. From numbing to neuroplasticity. So, think about yourself after work. Think how many times you open the fridge and you don't even realize what you're actually doing in that moment. This is called dissociation. You try to fill a void with sugar, alcohol, snacking, vaping, you can name it. So after work, we negotiate with Uber Eats, we develop an emotional relationship with Netflix. We promise ourselves that tomorrow will be different. Not because we lack ambition, but because we are dysregulated. Movement interrupts that loop. This is why, after a long day, you need to sit down, breathe, release the negative emotion instead of compensating with something else. Because most of the people walk blind all their life. Either they're stuck in a relationship with routine, with no love anymore, or they're tied to a job they don't like with golden handcuffs. So basically, try this: exercise and psychology, working out and mental coaching, because everything actually after that improves as a domino effect. When dopamine rises and cortisol falls, identity becomes plastic. Over time, with post workout therapy, clients began to work out intentionally before the session to lift up that dopamine, not for aesthetic reasons, but for their mental health. What I witness with my clients is that many women improve their body image. From restriction during the day, I eat less, and then binging in the night when I try to deal with my emotion. Relationship improves. So many women with anxious attachment style, always looking for the unavailable partner, the avoidant partner, and they actually develop a secure attachment style. And the career actually take a different trajectory. Why? Because instead of staying in their comfort zone, they ask for the promotion, they open their business, they became aware of the situation, and they were willing to change it. Let me tell you about the framework. So from this research and practice emerged a structure. In our paper with two university in London, we emerged that if you move, then you breathe, release, as I told you, and reimagine, you can actually reach your highest potential. Move to shift your neurochemistry. Breathe to regulate your nervous system. Release to articulate what is actually being suppressed. And reimagine to consciously design the behavioral change. This is applied neuroscience. When the brain is plastic, change accelerates. When the body feels strong, the mind becomes flexible. And flexible minds rewrite destinies. So now come with me. Just return for a moment to the cinema. You're still watching the movie of your life, the exhausted version, the reactive version, the one stuck in repetition. Now imagine watching a different scene. You move your body, your breath is steady, your physiology is regulated finally. You sit down to reflect, not in survival mode, but in strength mode. And now, when you look at the screen, you don't feel trapped anymore. You feel choice. You don't need more willpower. You don't need another coping mechanism. You need your biology aligned with your ambition. Because when the body feels safe, the mind becomes brave. And brave minds don't just watch their destinies, they direct them. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you so much. Absolutely fascinating work you have done with this research. I am so glad you are going out there in a big way, making women aware of this possibility. So we're going to come back to you during the Q&A and ask you lots of questions, okay?
Thank you so much, Gertrude. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. It is lovely to have you opening up for us for International Women's Day in the UK and Europe. Thank you so much. I'll bring you back on in a minute. I'm going to bring on our next speaker, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. After this morning, we had an incredible lineup of speakers. We had 3 sessions. starting in the morning here in Melbourne, Australia. It was afternoon in the US. And we had 12 powerful, powerful women who came and shared their stories. So now we are in Europe. I'm going to bring on our second speaker, Charlie. Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me? It then means when you came into StreamYard, something happened with your mic. Go out and come back in again.
I can't hear you.
Hold on. Or restart your computer. Technology is great when it works, terrible when it doesn't. This is crazy. Let's see if Charlie can come back in. Sometimes with StreamYard, another app is hogging the mic, and she might have to restart her computer. So fingers crossed, everything will go according to plan. They say the best laid plans always go wrong. So maybe while we're waiting for Charlie to sort out her computer and get the sound working, I will share a video presentation from another one of our amazing women. Let me just line that up. It was supposed to be after this presentation. And hopefully Charlie will win with her struggle with the computer. Okay, here we go. So this amazing woman is coming to us all the way from the United States. And while we're waiting for Charlie, we'll listen to her presentation.
Hi, my name is Alexandra Allred, and I'm truly grateful to be here. I can't think of anything more important than bringing women together to give each other encouraging messages. Mine actually started in 1993, and I was sitting on the couch at home holding my brand new baby, and I'm watching sports. And it's bobsledding. Never seen this before. And it was probably one of the most thrilling things I had ever seen. And I waited for the women, and I waited and I waited and I waited. And so I bundled up my baby and we drove to the library so I could do some research. And when I tell my college students this, I teach at a university in Texas, my students are usually confused. You what? So, and I always have to say to them, yes, everything I did back then was very difficult because there was no internet. But what I found was that women had done some bobsledding, but by 1920, women around the world were banned from the sport. Then in 1940, the Amateur Athletic Union in the United States opened up a competition in Lake Placid, New York, for women to compete in a 4-man competition. And a woman named Catherine Dewey won. It was the first and still the only time that a woman beat an all-male field in open competition. 2 days later, they stripped her of her medal and banned women from the sport again, citing protection and safety for her. So I'll give you all a moment to process this baloney. I was outraged, like so many. And so when I got home, then I began my very obnoxious and loud and relentless letter campaign protesting this, which I highly recommend to everybody, but it comes at a cost. First of all, I say to my students, it wasn't like I got on the internet and could just send out a bunch of emails to people. I was typing out my letters to the editors of sports magazines and newspapers, to the USOC, the International Olympic Committee, the FIBT, you name it. If it was attached to sports and or bobsledding, I was going after them. This is outrageous. This is unfair. You can't tell me. And then I kind of went about my way. And about 3 months later, I got a phone call from a person who identified himself as a board member with the United States Bobsled Federation. And he said, we are starting our first ever women's training camp. Are you coming? Big mouth. And I said, yeah, I'll be there. And I remember as he's giving me more details, I'm holding my phone and holding my baby. And I'm thinking, I'm looking out into this snowy field behind our house, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what have I done? And it gets even better because when my husband came home and he comes in and I'm like, okay, here's the baby. I got to go pack. I'm going to try out for the women's bobsled team. But I went, and the women that I met there, we were all walks of life, and we were all in the same boat because literally no one had ever done this sport before, the women who were there. And so this was brand new for us. And for those of you who don't know bobsledding, it's one of the most dangerous sports in the world. The gravitational pull, the G-forces that you feel inside the sled, it's literally like nothing I could ever compare it to. I always have people go, well, it's a lot like a roller coaster, right? And I, yeah, except for that the roller coaster can't fly off into the mountains and crash you into trees. And if you go sideways, which you won't because you're on a rail, your skin can be torn off of you, broken bones and whatnot. But sure. So we were all doing this training together, and week by week, we knew who was staying. Men and women's teams. There's usually a person who goes down one time and says, forget this, and they leave. But there was a core group of us who we loved it and we were in it. But at the same time, we were constantly being questioned. Why are you here? What are you trying to prove? What are you doing? And for me, because I was the only mom, you need to be taking care of your baby. You don't belong here. And so it was just as much fun as we were having in the sport and with each other, the women. It was every day. It was new obstacle, new challenges. But we stayed in. And in September 1994, the first ever U.S. Nationals push competition, and I happened to win. And I was also pregnant with my second child. This should have been a phenomenal, glorious moment for all of us. And briefly it was, until the then director of the program there, as he's putting the medal around my neck, and there's a photographer from Sports Illustrated, USA Today has been following our progress. And he leans in and he says, this changes nothing, right? And so I remember going back to the training center with all the women. I didn't say anything right away. And when I told them what he said, which was a pretty defeating moment, right? This group of women said, oh yeah, game on, let's go. And so that really was the first time we had our real challenge to why are you here? And we understood in that moment that it was so much bigger than us. And so we stayed in. We were denied training, sleds, uniforms. That's a big deal because a burn suit in the event of a crash. And then when you're first learning the sport, you do crash. You're 80, 85 miles an hour. The ice can just burn skin right off of you. And so we took ourselves overseas and borrowed money from family and friends, took out loans, whatever we had to do to get there. And we had the Canadians and the Brits and the Germans. They trained us and they coached us and they explained how you take the turns and the steering mechanism on a bobsled and how to brake and all those glorious things. And that was when we began to build our first international women's tribe, which proved again and again to be critical to our success. And it was a beautiful thing because we did not fight against each other, country. We helped each other because not only is it a dangerous sport, it's a heavy sport. Those sleds are very heavy. And so it didn't matter what country you were from. If you saw somebody struggling with their sled, everybody kind of ran over and we moved everybody's sleds. So it was truly a glorious thing. But the hits, and I don't mean bobsled, the hits never stopped coming. We went from, but you can't really be a team because you don't have bylaws. Okay, we wrote bylaws. And without the internet, this meant a lot of research, calling other countries. What do you say in bylaws? What does this mean? And we found our coaches, we found our people, we found our training. We befriended the infamous Jamaican bobsled team from Cool Runnings. Prince Albert of Monaco began following what we were doing because we were starting to get more and more attention because we weren't going home. And so we were at a competition in Germany and did well. And when we placed, we were given a 25-pound box of laundry detergent. And in the United States, when we were trying to get sleds, we were told to have a bake sale to raise money for a sled. But we just stayed in. And that's one of the most beautiful things is, and there were so many amazing things, but we stayed together. But we recognized again that this was, if we gave up and went home, the next group behind us was going to have the same problem. It's here that I want to say that intolerance is not that powerful. It only gets its power when we comply. But if we deny it, if we refuse to go along with these ideas and standards and rules that are placed upon us, not out of fearness or true intent, but to hold us down, that's when it gets powerful. But when we deny that, when we refuse to listen to that, it becomes powerless. Intolerance is really based on how many people go along with it and accept these ridiculous terms. And so we did. We not just as the American women, but women around the world, we all stood together. And for 8 long years, we broke bones. We had trips to an ambulance. We had ambulance rides and went to the hospital, grade 3 and grade 4 concussions. But we stayed in. And then in the late 1998, 1999, it was announced that women were going to be in the first ever Olympic Games in 2002. And in a story ending that I love so much, it was the baby from our team, the US team, who won the world's first ever gold medal for women in bobsled. And it also ended a 50-year dry spell of the American men not getting any kind of getting a gold medal. So the women turned out to be a real powerhouse. And if you watch the most recent Olympics, you saw that we're strong. The Germans are incredible. All the women are incredible, but the U.S. team has done nothing but thrive game after game. And so I want to end all this by just sort of reminding about why it's so important to trust your own instinct when you know that something is not right and that you do belong. When we did finally get a sponsor, we as a team decided together, we voted to share the money that we got for the women with the men's program, because by giving money to all of us, we were raising up the entire program. And that's what it's all about, right? There can't be equality if you treat one group a little less than the other group. For me, I joke and I say bobsledding is life. And my questions when I was there were, was I held back because this really is too dangerous for women? No. But this goes to you, no matter where you are in life. If you're being told that you can't or you mustn't, you're not allowed, you're not wanted, asking yourself the why, and when you know in your heart that it's ridiculous, it's not true, this is your challenge, not just for you, but for our daughters and our granddaughters and everyone behind us. And I love to just remind everybody that I'm just me. I'm sitting on the couch. I'm holding my brand new baby. I'm flipping channels and I see bobsled and I wait for the women to come. And they didn't. So I found them. And I just love to challenge you to say, can you imagine whatever it is that you're looking forward to or hoping to have or believe that you deserve, and you do? I hope you go find it. Go find your tribe. Thank you.
Absolutely beautiful. Wow. The inspiration that comes with women breaking into different spaces. This is absolutely amazing. Now, I can see that Charlie has dropped out again. I was hoping I could bring her on. Let's see. There she is. Charlie, you're back.
It's working now.
I thought you had dropped out again.
As soon as you started talking again, it went, and I went straight out. Let's get back in. Let's not have technology play out.
Okay, so fingers crossed it won't happen again. The stage is yours, Charlie. Introduce yourself, tell everybody where you are, and tell us your story.
No, of course. Thank you so much. So, hi everyone. My name is Charlie. I'm based here in London. I'm down in Surrey. And today I'm going to be talking you through my journey and my life on how I got to where I am now. So, it all started on a freezing January morning. I stood at my front door. My shoulders were so tight. My breath was shallow. And I faced with a simple choice. Either I shrink back into comfort or I start to take up my own space in my own life. I was just 18 years old and I was about to walk out of that door to teach my very first Pilates class. There wasn't an audience, no announcement, no dramatic moment was waiting for me on the other side. I was just a young woman in a doorway with my heart racing, trying to decide if I was brave enough to step outside. But that fear, it wasn't just in my mind, it was in my body. I could feel my shoulders and they were near enough touching my ears. My jaw was tight and my breath was stuck in my chest. Every single part of my body and me were bracing. Because stepping forwards, it meant being seen. And being seen felt being judged. And that just felt unbearable. But the truth is, that movement didn't just start at that front door. It had been building for years. I left school at 16 and I went straight into a corporate job in the corporate world where I was an insurance broker. I was the youngest in the office and one of the only women at the time. But for sure, I was one of the quietest. And I remember sitting at my desk, barely speaking above a whisper, surrounded by these people who were confident, they were certain in themselves, and they were so at ease in their own skin. They knew how to talk, they knew how to sell, but they knew how to take up space. I didn't. In my teens, I struggled with my mental health. I didn't feel strong. I didn't feel capable. I felt anxious, overwhelmed, and to be honest, completely out of place. Confidence to me always looked like a personality type, someone who was loud, outgoing. It was just effortless, really, for them. And you either had it or you didn't. I was certain and convinced I didn't have that. So that's where I adapted. I learned to stay quiet in meetings. I avoided eye contact and I made my body smaller in conversation. Because to me, shrinking felt so much safer than being seen. After a while, it stopped being something that I did and it really became who I was. And not long after, I started to find something, and that thing was Pilates. This was long before it was popular, before it was on social media, all the trendy aesthetic studios that we see nowadays. There was no matching outfits. It was just you, your mat, and breath. There was a quiet room where no one was expecting me to perform, to be loud. But it was at that exact moment that something really started to happen within me. Again, I didn't suddenly become confident. There was no big breakthrough, no dramatic moment of self-belief. But that's when I really started to find that I felt different. I felt calmer, more grounded, and more present within my own body. I learned to stand that little bit taller, to speak a little bit clearer, and I really felt less afraid to walk into those rooms. It was quiet, almost invisible, but sure, it was really powerful. Pilates became that safe place to me, somewhere I didn't feel that I had to pretend. That one place my body felt safe instead of feeling tense. And that's where I completely and utterly fell in love with it. Sorry if you can hear my dog. So at 18, I started to train to become a Pilates teacher. And this wasn't because all of a sudden I was confident. And it wasn't because I was ready, but because I really cared. And when I started to teach, that's when, again, this self-doubt really began. Again, I had people say I was too young to teach, too young to be taken seriously, too young to build a career in this. I'd walk into studios and be asked, "Are you here to help your mum? Oh, are you the assistant? Are you even old enough to teach this class?" Sometimes it wasn't even those words out loud, but you could feel that within the room. The raised eyebrows, the surprised looks, those surprised but doubtful smiles. That subtle energy, it says a lot. It says, we're not quite sure about you. And when you hear and feel that enough times, it really does something to you. You start to question yourself. You're over-explaining. We start to overprove. We start to overwork. You shrink your voice. You shrink your posture. And for sure, you shrink your ambition. Because deep down, you're trying to earn that permission to take up this space. I remember walking into rooms feeling like I had to prove myself before I even spoke. Prove that I was old enough, experienced enough, serious enough, and by God, prove that I was good enough. But when you feel like that, your body's never fully relaxed. Again, your shoulders stay tight, your breath stays shallow, and your posture, it becomes defensive. And this isn't because you're weak, but you're bracing for that judgment. And that's when I started to notice something. Every time I feel like I didn't belong, it showed up within my body first. Before I even said a word, my shoulders, they would round, my chest would close, and my breath would shorten. My body would make me smaller, way before my mind caught up. But the more I taught, and the more I moved, the more I practiced showing up anyways, something within me began to shift. I wasn't waiting to feel confident anymore, but I was building that physically, class by class. It was through posture, through breath, and through repetition. I slowly stopped trying to prove I deserved a space. I just started taking it. Again, this wasn't loud, this wasn't aggressive, but it was physical. I was quiet and it was consistent. Years later, I was about to open my very first studio and something unexpected happened. That doubt that I thought had gone, it came back. All those feelings that I thought I'd grown out of, they were suddenly right there again. I stood in this empty space before we opened thinking, am I ready for this? Can I really do this? I know I've been teaching for way over 7 years now, but am I even good enough to do this? That imposter syndrome was so loud. What if no one comes? What if I'm not experienced enough? What if they think I don't know what I'm doing? I had that same feeling I had on that cold January morning those tight shoulders, that shallow breath, and that same urge to shrink. But it was again within that very moment I realized confidence doesn't just arrive and stay with us forever. It's something that you return to, something that you practice again and again, and at every level in our life. So at that moment, I came back to my body, to my breath, to standing instead of shrinking. And it's at that moment I opened that door anyways. As the years went on, I now own 2 of my own studios and I'm building a training academy. What all started as a place to teach became so much bigger. Every day, women would walk through the door carrying something. Stress, self-doubt, burnout, grief, that fear of being judged, that fear of not being enough. Some stood so quiet at the back. Some apologized before they'd even begin. And some said they felt so disconnected from their bodies. But week by week, something would change. Again, their shoulders would soften, their breath would slow, and their posture would lift. They would start speaking that little bit louder, laughing a little more, and even standing that little bit taller. Confidence doesn't arrive as this big moment. It grows quietly, class by class. I've watched women who were afraid to walk into a room become the ones who would lead the way into the room. I've trained and mentored some young teachers who didn't believe them themselves. I've watched them turn into the most beautiful, confident instructors, holding that space for others. And that's when I realized something important. I hadn't just created a space for Pilates. I've created a space where people felt safe enough to grow. A space where confidence wasn't expected, but it was practiced. And that's when this idea became clear to me. Women don't learn to take up space within a boardroom first, or within their relationships, or when they make their big life decisions. But they learn to take up space within their own bodies first. Because before a woman can speak up in a meeting, start a new business, leave that relationship, or even walk into a new chapter in their life, they have to feel safe enough in their own body to stand. Again, we don't think our way into confidence, but we practice our way into it. Confidence isn't built in the mind first, it's built within our bodies. And once our bodies feel safe, our life around us begins to expand. So that's where I've created this simple framework called STAND. I want you to stand your ground. I want you to take this moment and feel your feet on the floor. Let your body feel supported instead of braced. T, take up space. I want you to lift your chest, relax your shoulders, and let your body expand instead of to collapse. A, I want you to anchor your breath. Slow, steady breathing tells our nervous system, you are safe, you are here, and you're okay. And D, decide to show up. Confidence isn't waiting to feel ready, but it's choosing to be present anyways. And the truth is, I was already practicing that on that freezing January morning, but I just didn't have the language for it yet. Yes, my feet were on the floor. I lifted my chest. I took a breath and I made that quiet decision. I opened the door. And that wasn't because I felt confident, but I was willing to practice it. And that small physical decision, it changed the whole direction of my life. So wherever you are today, I want you to take this moment and to stand. Stand for women on Internationals Day and stand for you in life, because you never know what's waiting for you on the other side of that door.
Wow. What An amazing story. And it is so funny that the two of you are here today on International Women's Day with very similar themes about
Yeah.
women and their bodies and knowing how to use them and knowing how to move them.
Yeah.
And even the other speaker who was on video, I mean, she's very, very physical, being a bobsleigh champion in the US. Women fitting into spaces where we're told we don't belong. So we're going to break down your presentations with some questions now. And the way that I like to run the forum is I'm going to ask you each some questions. I will comment on Alexandra's presentation because she's not here. She actually sent her apologies because she is supporting her daughter. They have some health challenges with her grandson, so she can't join us. But I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to reflect on her presentation. And hopefully when she does watch this, she will see that she did participate in today's beautiful event. So you both are women who stepped into a space that you felt uncomfortable. You knew that women needed support in certain ways. And although it didn't make any sense, you did it anyway. So I'm going to start with our first speaker. People told you that your research didn't make any sense. You knew, you had a gut feeling that what you were doing was going to produce results. Tell us what helped you overcome the fear, the self-doubt that comes when you're being judged by other people. Mariana.
I think, Gertrude, it was a compound effect. For me, what helped me was repeating the same action until I mastered it. So the core principle was the post-workout therapy. First of all, I witnessed the journey with my clients. I saw amazing women going for that date, asking for that promotion, improving the relationship with their body. That was like the biggest joy. And the second thing was like, okay, let me reach out to all the people that I work with during my internship, as well as Charlie. I was too young to be a psychologist. I was like, can you like do it? I was like, yes, and I'm doing that in another language. If you understand my thick accent, I'm from Ohio. I'm from Italy. Anyway, I called my supervisor from university and I said, we're onto something here. Let's write it down. Let's prove that this is evidence-based, that doing therapy after exercise is actually helpful. And so we started researching. I created a questionnaire with my own clients. I was asking them, fill this questionnaire before the program, after the program, and we start seeing the similarities. And so I remember I was attending this conference and they said, you're too young. I was an immigrant. Nobody, believed in me, especially when I spoke with the first angel investors. As a woman, they said, yeah, let's discuss about this over dinner. Yes, let's discuss this about around 10 p.m. And I said, no, that's not serious, just because I'm young and I'm a woman. And I kept on pushing and pushing and pushing. And then something happened. Finally, after years of fighting, the results arrive like fireworks, all in once. Public speaking opportunities, workshops, and I think it's because of word of mouth as well. So my clients spoke with other clients and other clients and started recommending me. And what helped me was a community of strong friends, family, that no matter how delusional was my idea, they believed in me.
I love that. That's just incredible. Charlie, I'm going to throw the same question to you.
Yeah.
Young as you were, stepping into these spaces where people would show you that they didn't think you could do it. What were you doing there? How could you run this class? How could you start a business? How did you overcome your self-doubt and the feelings that you have when people don't believe in you?
I have to be honest, it was tough. And with it again, it's similar to Ariana. I relied on my network around me a lot of the time. So I knew I'd done a lot of studying, I've done my research, I'd done my training, and I was so fortunate with my course. I had great mentors. So with that, I relied on them to help me through different points. I did extra training. I would come home, stick my head in a book, learn and know as much as I could. So if someone said something to me, I would be prepared to know the answer, because I think that was a lot of the things. I was like, right, okay, if I know what they're saying to me, even if it was obscure, if I came at them with my knowledge and my understanding, that would hold me in a high regard in their mindset. And I just used to sit there, take my time when I'd come in and go like, let's decompress from the day, take some time for you, still get myself practice in. But I would speak to my mum and my auntie. I was very fortunate. My aunt was also a Pilates teacher. So I relied both on them a lot to help me, to be honest. So I would offload, we would sit and talk. I'd go through things with them, and they would come back and go, look, you know what you're doing. Stop questioning yourself. And they would give me that little bit of positivity, that confidence each day that would, again, start to come through with it. The more I'd move it in my body, the more I'd listen to this positivity that you were missing. I went, yeah, no, I do know what I'm doing. And that I was like, let's keep going with this. And then as I started to work through with some difficult injuries with clients and they'd see great results, that would really boost me. And it was one client in specifically, he had a lot of neck issues, had them for years, to the point he could turn his whole body in a car instead of his head. So once we started to work through that, getting him moving, feeling fab, I was like, hang on, this man's had it a long time and no one's dealt with this. He's seen physios, doctors, osteos, and this young girl from Surrey has managed to work with it. And that
That's
really
just
pushed me through.
incredible. You know, when I'm reflecting back on all three of your presentations, I'm just thinking also of Alexandra. You know how she described that when they won, they were given washing detergent. I mean, what is that?
Oh.
They won a competition and the prize was to give them washing detergent, almost like to tell them that you should be home washing the clothes, being little woman. What do you think you're doing in this field? And a lot of women have broken these barriers for others. You know, you guys have really stepped forward to make it easy for other women to step forward and pluck up the courage to say, hey, I can do this. I know what I stand for. I know what I can do. And it just totally blows me away when I meet women like you. Now, let's go back to you, Ariana. Your research shows that physical movement creates what you call, and I hope I'm going to pronounce this right, dopaminergic window, correct?
Yeah, dopaminergic window. Yes, yes.
Okay. So how can women intentionally use exercise to unlock better decision making and life transformation?
So I will encourage whoever is listening in every part of the world. After the workout, usually we rush out. Even when we attend some classes, they say like, if you want, stay for the stretching, otherwise see you next time. Actually, that is the most important part. Like Charlie, I suppose like that's your bread and butter. That's the most important part. So I encourage the listeners to stay a little bit longer, to stretch on the yoga mats and reflect. How was I feeling when I entered this room? How am I feeling now that I'm going out? Tune in your body. Reflect if there is any tension on your shoulder, on your chest, on your abdomen, and be curious. Why am I feeling like this? What I'm still carrying from the day? What I want to leave in this room? Because if you reflect on that, you stop repeating in circle the same pattern and you can actually change, you can actually grow. Because when we are plateauing, there is no growing there.
Yeah,
And
no.
so this is a simple thing. You can just imagine a place that you visited in your childhood, in your dreams, or on vacation. Imagine that you are still there You have a key to this place, it's your safe space, and nobody can enter without your permission. In that moment, you reflect on 3 pillars: body, how I feel with my body today; relationship, am I nurturing my relationship, who I'm surrounding myself with; and third, my career, am I progressing or am I plateauing, stagnating? After that, it takes you like 10, 15 minutes, then you're free to go. But you will notice that you don't rely on external stimuli, dopamine hits like before, scrolling, quick sugar, vaping, and you can name it. Even like a glass of wine, it becomes 2, 3, 4. You will notice that you train your brain, you rewire your brain to think in that way. And as I said at the beginning, compound effect. Small
Yes.
action repeated over time leads to great results.
I absolutely love it. And just so both of you are aware, this video has gone live to LinkedIn and YouTube. And the links I shared with you, share those with your community. They're going to stay online. They don't disappear, although we're live, okay? So let me go back to you, Charlie. You spoke about how confidence starts in the body before it appears in the mind.
Yeah.
Why do you believe physical posture and breath play such a powerful role in building self-belief?
I think it's also how the world perceives us. So if I was to sit and done this meeting like this, and I was talking like this the whole way through my talk, you would perceive me very differently. Whereas if I was to stand there or to sit here talking clearly, my shoulders are relaxed, I've got an open through my body, instantly the world reacts to you differently, how they perceive you. So I think within ourselves, if we take that through and we think, okay, how is my body feeling today? And even when we do have those shadows of doubt, but we do stand there and we take that time to find our breath, to find where we are, and we use that within us, then we show that out in the outer world very differently. And that's where the confidence, I feel, really grows, because it's not like this fake persona that we're putting on, but when you sit there and think, okay, how am I? And I stand that a little bit taller, we can then put that out in the world. People interact with us different. If you've got the president standing there with his shoulders all dropped through, again, he'd have been reacted to differently. But I find definitely women in society, we do have to take up our space. And as you say, there has been some fantastic speaks all through today, and they all link beautifully through with movement. And that just really shows us how we move in the real world, how we open our hearts out and our bodies to movement can then persona on and through to how our mind works with everything as well.
You know, when I go back to Alex's journey, you know, beginning in 1993, when she was just watching a bobsledding thing on TV, realizing that there were no women competing. And instead of her just accepting it as, oh, okay, women don't play the sport, she asked the question many people would avoid asking: why aren't women allowed to do this, right? And that one moment of curiosity turned into action. And she is one of the first women in the world to participate in the sport. You know, it's just incredible what women can do. All three of your stories are just so inspiring. Now, Ariana, I'm going to go back to you again. Many women today are chronically stressed and dysregulated. What are the first 3 steps that someone can take to move from survival into what you called the strength mode?
Okay. Find, first of all, a form of movement. It can be Pilates, it can be weightlifting, it can be cardio. You need to find what works best for you. Don't force it, because at the beginning they just say like start with yoga. I was so hyped there, especially when I was living in New York. I was like, I need to do run, you know. And for me, I realized that when I was running, then I was like in my prime state, in my prime moment. So if for you is running, go for it. If for you is Pilates, absolutely go for it. Second thing, work on your posture and your breath, because the body keeps the score. So realize if your breath is shallow, realize when you're actually accumulating tension, and release. Move, breathe, release, and reimagine. As I said during my speech, I sometimes imagine, and I ask my clients to imagine too, you're sitting on the front row, you're watching the movie of your life. If you don't like what you see, change the script. The character can change because you are in charge, nobody else, not your boss, not your partner, not your mom.
Sorry, Mom.
You can actually change it. And when you realize, when you remove the mental blocks, I'm not good enough, I'm not worth it, I will never make it, you become limitless.
Yeah, that
That's
is so
lovely.
true. I do love that. Yeah, there's a quote that I absolutely love. I might butcher this, but it's something like, um, the beautiful thing about life is that you get to write the script,
Yeah.
be the director, and star in your own epic. We are creating our lives. Nobody else is going to do this for us, right?
Yeah.
Totally up to us.
Yeah, this is why sometimes people don't get what they want because their vision is blurred. So this is why I invite my clients to be architects of their destiny. Just catch it, you know. How does your relationship, if you want one, look like? How does your family look like? How does your career look like? How does your day-to-day look like? Because sometimes we complain about our present, but we don't know clearly what we want. We want a little bit of everything, you know. And instead of moving vertically with the compound effect, we're moving horizontally, a little bit here, a little bit there, and then it's too difficult, and then we give up because there is no clarity.
That is so true. Now, to go back to you, Charlie, your stand framework,
Hmm.
stand your ground, take up space, anchor your breath, decide to show up is simple and it's powerful. How can women apply this framework in everyday situations like meetings or public speaking?
You can apply this in absolutely everything that you do. We stand however many times a day. So I always say it's a great way, first thing in the morning when you're standing, brushing your teeth, just sit there. You're in front of a mirror. You can see your posture. You can see how your physical body is looking. And you can take that time to see and feel within as you go. When you're walking into that boardroom, you've already started that right early in your daytime. It's something you can practice again and again, and it's silent. I always say it's a bit like our pelvic floor exercises. They're two things that you can do silently, but are fantastic for us. No one knows you're doing them but you. And it's the same with our stand framework. You can do it wherever you are, sitting, standing, before a meeting, brushing your teeth, making a cup of tea. The more times we implement it, the more times that we start to believe it, and then we can go out and show it. But definitely, even before I came on here today, obviously I was a little bit nervous. Again, it's a whole new thing. I took that time again and just thought, right, let's go for this. This is another door I'm walking through. Let's find that breath and we'll get going. And it's been fabulous.
Sariana, let's get to your framework. Move, breathe, release, reimagine. Can you share a real story of a client whose life dramatically changed once they applied this neuroscience-based method?
Yeah. So, okay, of course, for confidentiality, I'm just gonna made up another name, let's say Sarah. So, Sarah, she is Irish. She works for the Big Four in Canary Wharf. And she was told that in order to succeed, she needed to be masculine all the time, performing dominant. But then she lost the connection with her feminine. This is why she was going on dates that felt like job interviews. She was overtraining, a lot of weightlifting, but she didn't have the body that she wanted because she started becoming a little bit bulky. She was just pushing, pushing, pushing. Why? Because the cortisol was super high. And ultimately, she was stuck in this corporate field that it didn't allow her to be who she wanted to be.
Yes.
The transformation started actually with the relationship with food. So we realized I created like a chart. It was a food diary, not counting calories, it was counting emotion. And I saw the pattern. It was especially in the evening and in the Sunday when she was alone and she was binging on sugar. Like, for example, she was opening a packet of Kellogg's for the breakfast and she finished it all because in that moment she was dissociating. And then we implemented the move, breathe, release, and reimagine. So she bought simply a Pilates mat. She was stretching. She created a comfortable environment. She light up some candles, nice atmosphere, nice music. And so she tuned in with her body instead of relying on sugar. And it started like that. The second thing that I noticed, since she felt more confident in her body, by confident I mean that she didn't feel inflamed and bloated because of the processed sugar, she started going on dates. And then we reflected on her approach. She was very schematic. Okay, so what do you do? What are your prospects? And I was like, it's not a job interview. You actually need to enjoy. It's a moment for you also to relax, to get the chance to meet a new person. And so then she unlocked that part and she didn't jump straight in a relationship to fill that void of loneliness deep inside. But actually she started exploring, looking around and finding her feminine again. And after that, again, a domino effect, body, relationship, career goals. Now she's still working corporate, but she moved part-time and she opened her own business. And so I see, like, honestly, she printed the business card, she opened the Instagram page, her website, and this happened over 2 years. And now she's like actually confident and a go-getter. And yes, it's still long, but if I remember how I met her, like very rigid, very schematic, it was difficult to open the Pandora box and explore everything. And now she's so smooth and confident and sunny. And, it took us 2 years, but change is possible. You don't have to rush it. You don't have
No.
to ask too much yourself. But what are 2 years if you consider the whole life ahead of you?
A total transformation. And you're right. You have to go at your own pace.
Yeah.
You don't have to follow anyone else's pace. You can pace yourself. That's just incredible. Now, let me just comment again on Alexandra's presentation. Speaking up can create unexpected opportunities. Alexandra began writing letters to sports organizations, to newspapers, to the Olympic committees, challenging the ban on women in bobsledding. And a few months later, she receives a phone call, a board member inviting her to attend the first ever women's bobsledding training camp. Her activism opened a door, and it opened a door not just for her, but many women thereafter. Now she's created a legacy. Now we've got a couple of people chiming in online. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a colleague of mine who normally tunes in when I'm online on my podcast. He's saying congratulations to everyone from my side. Here is actually a lot of interesting discussions going on. Thank you so much. We love it when men chime into our work, our summit, our podcast. Men are our allies. We are not fighting against you. We are just looking for a bit of space to stand with you in areas where we normally don't belong. So thank you so much for joining us tonight and contributing in this way. I absolutely love it. When HerStory started, I lost quite a few members. when I decided to start bringing men to come and speak on the podcast and in our events, right? And my rationale was I have two sons, and I want my boys to be in the rooms where women's issues are being discussed.
Mhm.
There's no point in us advocating for women's rights and alienating men. There's a lot of men who will get behind us. So we actually have 25% of our speakers are male. This year for this summit, unfortunately, it's all females. But in future, if there are any men out there who feel they want to be a part of the HerStory movement, you are very welcome. We need our allies to stand by us. We also have another good friend of mine chiming in from Brisbane, Australia. Great discussions, ladies. Love from Brisbane. Bonnie, thank you so much. Lovely to see you with us today. And you're going to be one of our speakers next year because we are working to get you on the TED platform as well. This is awesome. I absolutely love it when people participate. So let's see, what other questions do I have? There's just so much to unpack and to discuss. I'll go back to you again, Ariana. You have done something that has created change in your industry. How does it feel now that you've come on the other side of branching into an area that nobody else had seen? And you've come out with amazing results. You're being acknowledged for it. What does that feel like for you? And what kind of a legacy do you think you've left for other young women like you in the future?
Well, I am still passionate like day one. Tomorrow, I'm actually speaking in front of the students of University of West London, second year of psychology. And I'm still emotional because I remember when I was sitting in class and I remember that I was standing up, raise a question, very curious. And so for me, it's still difficult to believe that, because tomorrow I'm closing the circle. I'm speaking to students in university, something that if you ask me like 5 years ago, I would say like, no, that's impossible. And I don't think that this discovery has changed me because in every single relationship with my clients, I put all my focus, all my attention, all my passion. And ultimately, what's important is to build long-lasting therapeutic alliance. Only one thing that changed is that you change the people you surround yourself with. You have few friends that stand by you even when you didn't accomplish anything, that believed in you, while all the new people are coming along just because now,
It's worked.
something. Yeah.
They say that you're a sum total of the people you surround yourself with, right?
Yes, no, exactly. This is why it's important to surround yourself with people that are positive and lifting you up and curious, not about someone that's always complaining but doesn't do anything to change it.
I absolutely love it.
You can go on to inspire the next.
Exactly.
Come to Notting Hill, come to Notting Hill.
Now, Charlie, you began teaching Pilates at 18 and were often told that you were too young. What advice would you give to young women who are underestimated or not taken seriously by society?
I would tell anyone, women and men, to be honest, whatever your goal is or whatever fills your head with joy, that's where you go through. And we all come into hurdles in life, no matter, again, if they're work, relationships, your age, there's always going to be a stigma around something. And the more panels that are put up in front of you, more hurdles, more judgment, I always say that is your path, because the more someone's trying to stop you going somewhere, sometimes it's their insecurities and they're relaying it to you. But if you believe that's your journey, just go full steam for it. Because I know I've had it at times in my life and people going, are you sure? And then with their age, and I was thinking, gosh, are they right? But I knew in my heart, I love teaching. I loved helping others because I saw how it made people feel. And again, it really fits really nicely with Ariana's work. When I saw people move, they would become happier, they would feel more confident. And I've seen it with my clients, and I've gone, do you know what? This is my journey, this is my path. And I'm so glad that I did pursue it. And I think if you've got a dream out there, no dream is ever too big, and you're never too small to go achieve it.
I love it. And one of the things that I've learned, right, about listening to other people, I will never ask advice from somebody who hasn't done it.
Yeah.
Unless you've done it, don't even talk to me. Don't even comment. You're not an authority on it. You know, talk to the people who've done it. They will give you the best advice. And for family and friends who say things, a lot of times breaking the fear barrier, they're scared that you might get hurt, you might do something wrong. If they're your friends, they want to keep you on this side of the fear barrier so that, you know, you're with them. Because the minute you cross that fear barrier, you're no longer in their circle, right? So family and friends are sometimes the worst people to support you when you're trying to have these breakthroughs. So ask the people who've done it. Don't bother with those who haven't. We have another very, very good friend of mine chiming in from Melbourne, Australia. Yvonne, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Very interesting conversation. Congratulations on International Women's Day. Thank you. It's an absolute honor to have you chiming in and listening in from here in Melbourne, Australia. So I'm going to summarize today's session with a few points that have really come out of, you know, listening to all of you and also listening to Alexandra's presentation. You know, progress requires courage and it requires persistence. The women who joined her bobsled program, they faced enormous challenges. You know, the funding, no equipment, no uniforms, no training sleds, the constant criticism and doubt, and pressure to quit. But at one point, they were even told to have a bake sale to raise money for a sled. I mean, how condescending is that? Despite all the injuries, the financial struggles, the resistance, the women refused to give up. And the two of you refused to give up. You knew you were onto something big. And the other thing is sisterhood and global collaboration makes success possible. Women from different countries begin helping each other. Right now, we have 3 different nationalities. It's 4, with Alexandra being in the United States, someone in the UK, someone from Italy in the UK. I'm from Africa, but here in Melbourne, Australia. It's when we start working together as women and we start collaborating. So instead of competing with each other, we need to create international tribes. And this is what I'm trying to do with HerStory, right? Because solidarity helps us all grow. If I can help to support, empower each and every one of you to tell your stories from a position of strength, my job is done. I've spent hours preparing all of our speakers, you know, and for me, it's not work. When I see the progress of when we started with me giving you little tips here, why don't you try this? Why don't you add that? And then you show up on International Women's Day the way you did today. I tell you, this is the reason why I'm on the planet. I've been up since 5 o'clock this morning. I literally had 3 sessions in the morning with 4 speakers each. Now I'm back in the evening. I had to take a granny nap this afternoon. But this is the reason why I was born, to help empower women. And tolerance only exists when people allow it. You know, one of Alex's most powerful messages was, intolerance only has power when people comply with it. So when we challenge unfair rules and refuse to accept them, those rules begin to collapse. The women continued pushing through 8 years despite resistance. The 2 of you have been on a journey. You know, Ariana, you're saying you're doing this lecture tomorrow. You are inside the dream that you had 5 years ago. How incredible is that? Same with you, Charlie. I was actually reflecting the other day about my life when I left Africa 25 years ago. I remember thinking, I want to live in a safe country. I want my kids to be safe, and I want to live long enough to be a grandmother. When I left New Zealand, the life expectancy of a Zimbabwean female was 21. I was 31 because of the AIDS pandemic. I am 69, 59 this year, and I have lived way past my die by date. And I wake up every morning. I am grateful to be alive. I could have been a statistic. And my little grandson is turning 5 this year. I'm long enough to be a grandmother. And movement is what I'm using to stay vibrant. The day this baby was born, I was about 100 kgs in weight. I was recovering from heart failure. I'm down to 76 kgs today. And once he danced at his wedding, I am so determined to keep moving, to stay vibrant and healthy, so I can celebrate my little grandson maybe one day when he gets married. So we have to be persistent. And persistence changed the Olympic history for Alexandra because of their determination. Bobsledding was finally added to the Olympic Games in 2002, and she started in 1993. And the first Olympic medal in women's bobsled was won by members of the US team that she pioneered. They fought to change sport. And the biggest lesson in all of this, ladies, is trust your intuition when something is unfair. We've got to trust ourselves. You trusted your guts. You knew you were onto something. You followed those breadcrumbs. You followed that little voice in your head that kept saying, there's something here, just do it, right? Alex's closing message was very universal. She said, if you ever hear you can't do it, you don't belong here, that's not for someone like you, ask why. Because often those barriers only exist because no one like you ever challenged them. So thank you for showing up and launching this beautiful International Women's Day with me. You just make my job so easy and my life worthwhile. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody who tuned in. Those who are still asleep, you will watch this video when you wake up. Please share this video, tag your friends, share these stories so we can reach more women. We want to inspire them, encourage them, show them how these things can be done. We'll be back again tomorrow, everybody, with 4 more sessions, starting in the morning in Melbourne, afternoon in the US, and in the evening, we come back to the UK and Europe. Have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and bye for now. Ladies, don't go away.